everyone. We are so happy to have you here on our second call in the Critical Conversations in Peace Education series. I am Stephanie Knox-Steiner, professor at the University for Peace, and I'm co-hosting this call with Tony Jenkins of the Global Campaign for Peace Education and the International Institute for Peace Education. And we're so excited that all of you have chosen to be here today. So thank you for your presence. Let's see, maybe a few just logistical things to talk about as we get settled. As you enter, you're welcome to introduce yourself in the chat, so keep doing that. Let us know where on earth you're calling from, how you're arriving today. And just to give you a sense of our flow today, so today's theme is around building community and solidarity in peace education. And so I'll be offering a few opening words around that, recapping our last session briefly, and introducing the session's theme, and then I'll hand it over to Tony. And then we'll be spending a good chunk of time in breakout groups, because that was feedback we received last time, that there was a lot of enthusiasm for spending more time in the breakout rooms. And so in this call, we're not just talking about building community and solidarity, but we're going to be trying to do that together in this moment. So I would love to invite us to just take a breath and arrive. So you're welcome to close your eyes if you want, or you can perhaps just soften your gaze, look at something beautiful in your environment. Take a couple of nice deep breaths and let yourself land here. Acknowledging the present moment and that it's a condition of happiness that we get to gather as a global community of peace educators. I invite you to notice your breathing, your body, where you are in space and time on the earth. Notice how you are arriving today. Your body, mind, heart, spirit. And see if you can sense into this field of connection through the Zoom call, that we are connected by our beautiful planetary home, connected through the Zoom space. And what a joy it is to be connected through our work as peace educators. And when you're ready, you could perhaps take a deeper breath, maybe a stretch. Start to open your eyes if they were closed. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I also invite you to just take a look at who else is on the call. Perhaps put yourself in gallery mode and scroll across the screen or scroll down the participants list, just noticing who else is here. And you'll get a chance for more connection when we move into breakout rooms in a little bit. So thank you, everyone. I'll move into sharing a little bit about the last call we had. I know many of you were there, and introducing the theme for this session, and then I'll pass it over to Tony. So this is an ongoing virtual series that UPeace, the Global Campaign for Peace Education, and the International Institute for Peace Education are collaborating on and co-hosting together. And through this series, we intend to uplift and elevate the work of peace education practitioners, pose critical questions, and, there we go. Pose critical questions about our field and foster a global community of peace educators. So in the last call, we really focused on that second piece of posing critical questions about our field and in the present moment and the future of our field. And so in that session, we asked key questions that we're holding for ourselves, and you went into breakout rooms, and or many of you who were there, and generated a lot of questions. I believe Tony is going to put the link. Can you do that, Tony? Put the link to the. We have produced a summary document of those questions that we'll share with you. And we intend to use those questions to seed future conversations. Some of the core themes that emerged included navigating institutional and political tensions, curriculum integration, pedagogical and teacher preparation, global challenges, including war and the ecological crisis, overcoming fear and resistance, inner peace and the ethical and spiritual dimensions of peace education and personal transformation, sustaining hope and cultivating agency and long-term impact, and policy and legislation. So it was a really rich session, and we have infinite themes for future conversations that we're looking forward to having with all of you. So today's session is focused on building community and solidarity within peace education. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this session serves a dual purpose of both building community and solidarity on these calls as a global peace education community, and also hopefully giving us some tools and inspiration around building community and solidarity to take back to our local contexts. So in session one, we gave folks about 30 minutes in breakout rooms, and I feel like everyone came out from the breakout rooms and wanted more. So this time we'll spend about 45 minutes. That's our intention to spend in the breakout rooms so that you have a nice amount of time to really get to know each other and share about your experiences. Also, we found that when we were looking at the list of questions that were generated in the first session, building community and solidarity seemed like recurring responses to the questions that were coming up. So that was part of why we set that as the theme for this session. And just on a personal note, as a peace educator, I see community building as the heart, the most essential part of my pedagogical practice. And when I'm in a classroom with students, that's where we begin. And I feel like anything or so much is possible when we build and weave community together in an ongoing way. And so, yeah, it's important to me in my peace education practice, and I know it's important to many of you as well. So today we'll be talking about how we do that and sharing stories around that. And so with that, I will one little logistical note before I pass this to Tony. We are wanting to make these calls as accessible and expansive as possible. And we realize that the operating language at this time is in English. Um, we're trying to figure out how to navigate that, and we welcome any feedback or support. At some point, we may be asking for volunteers. For today's call, the captions are enabled. They're in English, and so that can be supportive in terms, for many reasons, many people. That's for today's call as far as we're able to get. But in the next registration form for the next call, we will have a question about language needs, and we will go from there. And I'll pass it over to you, Tony, if you want to say anything more about that, and then, yeah, just hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, if we're going to talk about community, we need to start with the elephant in the room. We talk about community, it's important to celebrate its individual members. I think the secret is already out that there are some people here who have a birthday today. So Janet Gerson, happy birthday. And I'd also want to note that today was also the shared birthday of IIPE, the late IIPE and Global Campaign founder, Dr. Betty Reardon, who would have been 96 years old today. So if if I can convince everyone to join me, and please do unmute yourselves because I can't sing very well. If we could all get a rousing happy birthday chorus for Janet Gerson going, and Stephanie, will you help get us started?
I can get us started. And when everyone unmutes, it's a little chaotic, but it's totally welcome. So let's do chaotic birthday. Okay, are you ready? Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
dear
dear
Janet
Janet.
and Betty.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
All right, beautiful, beautiful chaos. So if you we'll continue to celebrate throughout the day, of course, and throughout the call, but I can just ask everyone to mute themselves again, just so we can get going here.
Sorry, Tony. There you go.
Thank you. You muted me, Stephanie. How dare you? I don't know. I'm going to speak very briefly today, just to give a little food for thought, a little bit of inspiration, and looking at the role that community and solidarity have played in our work as key both organizing principles and pedagogical principles of the International Institute on Peace Education in the global campaign for peace education. So looking around here at the screen today, I can see many people who are familiar with the work of the Institute in particular, but its founding in 1982 was premised on the role of creating a learning community with the purpose of learning with and from each other towards addressing at the time the issue of the existential threat of nuclear proliferation. So this learning community approach has become pretty much the defining characteristic of the Institute. And we could look at this in a number of different ways. In its simplest form, a learning community we could see as an intentional space where we are engaged and learning towards a common purpose. But I think it's bigger than that, right? It's for us in peace education is the embodiment of a prefigurative a pedagogy that gets manifested through, doing things like working cooperatively, modeling and living our principles together, supporting each other, experimenting and participating in democratic learning processes, all those different things that are obviously essential to addressing common problems of violence and injustice. Now, we've been experimenting with these ideas of learning communities throughout the years. And there's a certain point in time where we realized our institute as a gathering that brought people together every year and now every other year, that our learning community space is somewhat ephemeral, right? We're able to create this magical global learning exchange and community. But as people stepped away and into their own spaces, that energy fizzled. So we sought to experiment throughout the years with different ways of localizing and maybe sustaining those learning communities. And in 2007, and some of you were there for this, on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the Institute, several members of our community came together to explore and deepen this idea and establish what became known as CPAs, or community-based institutes on peace education. And these for us were envisioned as sustainable, community-based, non-formal peace education learning communities that help fill an important gap. Amongst other things, we knew and we saw that there was a lack of formal opportunities in the preparation of educators and peace education methods, and that still is a problem today. But we also saw this as helping to establish communities of praxis and support to affect change through education, right? To help us really kind of dive more deeply into sustainable local and indigenous practices of educational change. So we had some wonderful years of experimentation with the CPE communities. We had communities established in Colombia and Mindanao in the Philippines, in Ukraine and Tanzania early on. And we learned some from those experiences. Some of those experiences have evolved into their own forms and are ongoing today. Others have faded away. But I guess we've learned a lot of things over the years. As Stephanie was pointing out in her own personal practice, the importance of community. It's vital. We need it to obviously sustain ourselves. We need it to establish solidarity through the difficult work that we do. We need community to validate our experiences, to validate our pedagogies. And we need community to help us grow also as individuals. All right. So I think there's another layer of this that has become really important in the context of the Institute is that community is vital to support us in healing from all the vicarious trauma that we experience in the educational work that we do. And as I've thought more and more about this over the last decade or so, I think that working with and through community and learning communities in particular is probably the most efficacious and sustainable way for us to create change. And I think this is a somewhat overlooked part of our theory of change and our strategy, right? And so as we look at and we begin to examine the role of peace education and contributing to both social and political change, the more obvious it becomes that this is something that can't be accomplished without embracing community and solidarity as key organizing principles. But it's not easy. As with all good things, obviously, sustaining community takes a lot of work. It requires dedicated and organizational strength and planning and listening and endless creativity and resourcefulness. And when things get difficult, it can be easy for us to shift our attention to immediate needs and to immediate actions of the political moment. And when this happens, sometimes certain aspects of maintaining and nurturing the learning community can kind of fade into the background, right? I'm sure we've all experienced sort of that high you get after having an intense conference, learning community, solidarity kind of experience, where you make deep commitments to each other, but those things fade away as you return to your home spaces. So over the years, a lot of questions have come up for us. I'm just going to pose these questions as my own, but they may be shared by you as well. Yeah. So how do we go about nurturing and sustaining these learning community spaces? How do we prioritize the community building work amongst the urgent and the immediate needs of our day-to-day direct educational work to confront issues of violence and injustice? And as I zoom out and think about like the global campaign in particular, in our global world, in our shared world, how do we go about fostering local to global community and solidarity, and what does that look like effectively? So for today's breakout, which we're going to move to in just a minute, we are suggesting a series of 3 rounds of guiding questions, and we're going to encourage you to follow along with these as best you can. We're not going to obviously be too prescriptive in your space of dialogue, but there's an intention and a purpose in what we've proposed here. In our first round, Stephanie, can you do us a favor? Can you drop these questions into the chat? In our first round, we want to take the opportunity in your space to just provide some introductions to connect a little bit more deeply to each other and to the purpose of today's call. So having a chance to just, give a sense of who you are, where you're coming from, what's brought you here, what's your work in peace education, and then more specifically on the topic of today, to explore what building community and solidarity means to you in your work as a peace educator, and what needs arise for you and trying to find and build community and solidarity. But we also want to provide a space for a second round today of deeper storytelling, where we're going to invite everyone to share stories about times where you've experienced a deep sense of community in your life or your work as a peace educator. And then after everyone's had a chance to share there, we want to have a chance to explore those stories more deeply, and see what strategies we can harvest from our experiences about how we can build community and solidarity, and also explore the remaining questions that arise for us as well. So, one of the things that we're going to invite you to do too, just as a technical note, I think what do we have? I think we'll probably go with about 4 groups today. What do you think, Stephanie, looking at the numbers? So we have between
Yeah, I was thinking 4 or 5, like groups of about 7.
7 or 8. That should give
Yeah,
everyone a
is
good
that
chance to have some space to contribute. We're going to encourage you once you move into those spaces to designate someone as a reporter in your group. And like we did last time, we want to kind of harvest the reports from your conversations. In particular, we're going to focus in on that third round of questions that are looking at, strategies and practices. And we've created a shared document, the harvest document that Stephanie has just posted in the chat. And so we're going to encourage you to provide your reports there. And then we come back together as a group at the end of the call. We'll have an opportunity to do very short report outs, primarily focusing on those questions from that last round. And we're going to invite each group to share, at least in the first round, one of the most significant highlights from their conversation. Okay. All right, does that sound good? Any questions? Any concerns before we create some breakout spaces? You want to?
welcome back, everyone. I think we are all back here. It's good to see you, and we are excited to hear how your conversations went. Um, each group, we had ended up with 4 groups, and we'd love to hear from each one. You didn't finish. That's okay, Neil. Hopefully, you had a rich discussion. I'm glad you appreciated the longer time. So maybe if the reporters could raise their hands, and we can give each group a couple of minutes to share some highlights for us. And I see that some things have been added to the document. I'll just put the link in the chat one more time. We'd love for you to populate the document for us.
It's
Karen,
Stephanie, it's not
yeah.
taking copy and paste.
Weird. Okay.
I've just been typing on the side and I thought I'll just copy and paste it into the document, because last time when I was typing in the document and someone else was typing in, it all got a bit confused so I thought
Sure.
so I'm putting it in the chat here, but there's
Okay.
a limit to the
Why don't
amount
you,
of
if you,
characters.
sure, if you email it to me, Karen, I can see that it gets added. There's my email in the chat.
Thank you.
Can add it to the document. But did you want to go ahead and share from your group? Are you the reporter?
Do you want me to say something? Sorry.
Well, I'd like someone from each group
Yeah.
to share some highlights. So I don't
Some
know if that's you
okay.
from your group.
So from round 3, Maurizio talked about building bridges by seeking commonalities between diverse groups and looking for similarities rather than differences, and then leading them to realize that every human's got needs and that they've got more in common than is different, that this was a good starting point. And we also talked about how peace education spaces can be created through sharing food and facilitation roles, and project work was a good way to create bonding opportunities, but time is always a real constraint for participants. And we also talked about the theoretical work. Sometimes it's difficult to move into the active space, and activities, particularly for young people, like art, theatre and sports activities, open the door to peace building. And even if it was something like film watching, or sorry, I've just got to look at my other note on the other page, playing games, film watching sessions, to hook people's interest first of all, and then move into engaging them before moving on to the peace education side of things. They were the highlights from our group. I hope my group would agree.
I see lots of nods and thumbs up and claps. Thank you so much, Karen, for that great summary of highlights. Would another group like to share? Yes, Neil, please go for it.
Thank you. We didn't really start the third round, which was the thing you really wanted us to record on your sheet, but we've heard 3 stories. One from Pablo in Chile about the really good neighborhood community activities that were happening every week and that were spreading to other communities, but were stopped by COVID. But they're rebuilding now. I was talking about the Bosnian community that I'm involved with, remembering Srebrenica, and the sense of community we're building in this country with survivors and refugees, and having a common purpose and a shared commitment. And also Charlotte was talking about a water project focusing on women and small business activities being highly successful, but we didn't quite get to very far with the sort of strategies and stuff.
No, that's great, Neil. Thank you. I mean, part of our purpose was to just give you space to connect and share around stories. So it sounds like you did just that. And any of you can feel free as well to add directly to the document. You know, for your group, for example, you can still add to it. Tony and I will eventually put out a summary version of it. We'll tidy it up and share with you, but it won't be right away. So you have some time to add if you want. I think we have 2 more groups to hear from. So would anyone else like to share?
I could share from our group. Should I do that, Leonisa? Did you put anything in?
Not yet. So I was just trying to find it, but I could, yeah.
Okay, because we had a number of languages. So a lot of time was spent, I mean, we tried to help with that. One person, Sima, since no one spoke Turkish, put it in the chat, put her work in the chat. And then we had some translating. Okay, some things that came up in our group were how, first of all, the question of Moses made the comment that he found gaps that led him to work in peace. And the 2 gaps he named were in the textbooks. There's nothing about how to act peacefully. You know, it's not being written up and talked. And there was a lot of bullying in the classroom. And a lot of students didn't come to class if they were victims of violence. And so he thought a way to bridge these gaps would be to go into the community. And that led to peace journalism and peace TV. And that's a very brief version. And then Diana in Argentina mentioned the lack of understanding peace, because she said violence is visible, but peace is invisible to people. So how do you make it visible? And since her group, are trained in conflict resolution and mediation, they described that mediation is a way to make community mediation is a way to make peace visible to the community and engage people in it. And let's see. We also said Mao said in French, there's a gap between the rational thinking, talking, and peace in our hearts. And Leonisa said, yes, that's the spiritual dimension that we're often lacking. And let me see. Vicky, also from Argentina, emphasized learning to communicate. Of course, we communicate all the time and we're told to behave and do it well. But the learning of how to do it is so significant. For example, and then Anne said, I may have this wrong, but I'll give you credit anyway. Oh, it was Fatima saying we have to learn to to listen, to really listen, and not start with our opinions or answers. Listen and wait for the answers and the responses. And we would add learning to form questions, to open up the discussion, and to, as Leonisa said, we meet with groups that she just starts with how to talk to each other rather than starting with prickly issues, racism, inequality, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you, my group. We did not write anything in the chat, but in the document, but it could appear later.
I just
Leonie,
added some.
anything else?
I just added some. Okay.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. She was also translating to French, so it was okay. Thank you very much. My group was really wonderful. Merci, merci, gracias. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, dear Janet. I think that means we've heard from all the groups at this point. Is that right?
Isn't there one more?
I think there's one more, and I think that's the group with, let's see, it could be wrong about this, with Bond, Catherine, Eamon, Hussein, Laura, Regina, and Samira. Is someone from that group, from room 2, would be
Well,
able to share a little report?
I didn't write anything. Okay, so that was Catherine. She volunteered herself to add some things, but on the overall, like we mentioned that the lack of trust, it's an issue, you know, the violence that even here in Brazil, that we don't have wars, there is the violence issue that's very common, and it affects all the school environment mainly, because it's somewhere that they cannot hide from violence, you know, the bullying and the violence of the regions and the schools from the ghettos or slums, or even like communities that are not really connected with social problems. We still have that. And I think there is a possibility of building community if we can get the trust back, you know. But I mean, this is just a tip of what we talked about. If Catherine or Eamon wants to share something else, please do it.
I think that you covered most of it, but I think that the main idea is that we talked about how it is important for us to connect and have this space that we have right now is key for this, because we have to be able to see each other and to be able to understand each other's perspectives. And Eamon talked a little bit about also the the status that we are in terms of the economical pressure that everybody's feeling all around the world, and how the values may change, right, according to the pressure that we have to perform or to do a lot of things that pushes us away from our humanity and all of the things that connects us. So I think this was also very powerful, because um, I think all of us struggle a lot. As the first group said, it is invisible to see peace, but violence is extremely visible. And we also talked a little bit about social media and how it is programmed to make violence more accessible than peace. And I think that this is also a struggle that we have. And we are using technology in a way that is proving that the problem is not technology. Like we are here connected now to prove that there are people all around the world that believe in the same things that we do and are willing to work towards it. So I think we were all very inspired also by the talk.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, making peace visible sounds like an important task to uplift. And I really appreciate this point about building trust. It feels like building trust and building community go hand in hand, and it's never like building peace, that there's no end point. It's a constant process of building and rebuilding. Well, we're about at the top of our time. Tony, did you have any wrap-up words? No?
No, other than, again, we've been planning this to be an ongoing conversation. And
Yeah.
so in the next week or so, Stephanie and I will get together, try to generate a report from this conversation today. But we're also going to, work to schedule our next conversation sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks, give or take. Trying to be gentle with our schedule. But we hope to see you all again.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And maybe to close, we hope that this was a connecting experience for all of you. And the last time we closed just by asking folks to add a word about how you're feeling at the end of this call into the chat. So we invite you to do that now as well. I am feeling connected. So welcome you to add your words, hopeful, grateful, amazing, hopeful, thankful, reinvigorated, validated. Excellent, heard and supported. Amazing. Well, thank you all so much. Feel free to unmute yourself as you head out the Zoom door. And like Tony said, we'll be in touch soon with details for the next call and topic of conversation. So we look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.